Hello everyone, this is General Hand Grenade. Welcome to Edmonton, Alberta, and part 2, day 2 of Fury in the Cathouse. If you need to know how we got to this point, you're going to have to go back and watch the last video because I'm not going to go over it. I got too much to get through today. So, if you remember what happened last time, Moose, he came up here and he took out my boats and landed in Western Germany, and so this morning I got up and I bitch slapped him. I came through the Kiel Canal here with my boats and I had a shit ton of planes. I'm using this like it looks like it's empty on Germany right now. That's because I'm using this card. It's just getting too crowded in Berlin. So you see all these planes here. All those planes came out and took out his boats there. And what else is going on in there? I went down and I took Yugoslavia. I didn't do anything on the Eastern Front. Let me just set this down. So when I took out Yugoslavia with the elite of the Reich, for $3 each, I could pay and get these things. So here's I managed to get 3 Mountain SS, and I got 1 Panzer Grenadier. So that was a bit of a bonus for me. And what else? I annexed this. That's just something you do, and that's about it. Other than I used my subs. So I remember I had a bunch of subs down there in down south there. What I did was I took 3 of them. I took 2 out of the Med and 1 from down south, and I attacked his boats, which were here. I managed to take out 2 of his boats, including the one that was on escort duty. So then once he was off escort duty, or they had nobody on escort duty, then I brought these subs down, and they took out his money on that escort line down there. And also that escort line down there, but he wasn't successful in taking out that. They got outrolled down there. So, yeah, like down this one here, this guy got outrolled because they did have an escort over there. Anyway, so that's what Germany did. In Spain, nobody attacked anybody, and we both hit our recruitment roll. So I put in a mountain infantry, and he put in a light tank, and we both got our recruitment roll, so that meant there's a Republican infantry and a nationalist infantry in there now. So things are getting a little bit more crowded in there. The Med is starting to clear out a bit. What do we got in there? Geez, it looks like Italy should be getting a bonus now because there's no ships in the Mediterranean, no enemy ships. Because this one here is Vichy, so I'll have to remember to take that bonus. Italy did buy another transport in there, so they've got 2 transports. Wonder what I'm gonna do there. Maybe they'll be going to war soon. And France can't do much, right? All they were able to do was buy a dude. But Moose forgot to tell us where he moved his capital last night. So we've got a new player today, and Moose will be here later today. They're both going to be playing the Allies. He decided that he wanted his capital down here in Belgian Congo. So that's where he's going to congregate for now. He's got a leader down here, and he's got a leader up there. So he's not short of leaders, just short of followers. Turkey didn't do anything except for add stuff and move them around and everything. So they added 3 units and moved people around. Russia didn't do anything down south here. The British didn't do anything except for add units. And the same with the British on this side. The British did absolutely nothing except for add units. But one thing they did do was they left Canada with these boats. And they got a guy on this boat. So we don't know where they're going. And Rank Carcass, he's playing the Russians up there. He is just being a total dick to the Americans because he's, you see this thing here, he's building a complex for a factory for Portugal. Plus he's gone up here and taken out the Azores. Now for the Americans, when you're coming across the water here, it's nice to have some place where you can stop halfway there so you don't have to leave your units on a ship in the middle of the ocean, right? That can get taken out somehow. So he's taken out Portugal and he's taken out the Azores, and they can't attack the Russians until Berlin falls. and I don't have any plans of letting Berlin fall. so that's kind of a dick move on his part, but I like it. I'm loving it. Now over here in China, Japan took. There was only China only had two places left. One place had two militia on it, and the other place you can see how full it is. So on the next turn, Japan's going in there. They're going in there with all they got, and it's just going to be Fury in the Cathouse. And once that's done, hopefully for me, there won't be any more Chinese, and then it's time for me to turn my attention towards the British and the Americans and the French. But you look at the Americans' income up there, and they're only at 27. They haven't been rolling very well. So like last round, Moose, he rolled a 1, and today Brad rolled a 4. So they only went up 5 on their income in the last 2 rounds. I could just leave the British alone. And just, you know, like I've got lots of money and everything. I could just start stockpiling boats or doing something. Like I don't have to go anywhere. If I don't attack the Russians, if I don't attack the British or the French, then the Americans, the only money they're going to get, the only increases they're going to get is by rolling those dice. And it could take them a while. Like I could keep them out of the game for a while. Thing is though, Japan, they don't have a ton of oil. But if all I'm doing is building and not going anywhere, then I don't need any oil, right? I do have the one derrick there in China, but I'm going to need to spend oil this time. I'm going to need to spend a full complement of it this time, attacking Yunnan there. Down here, the Anzac, they built a fighter. So that's all they did. These guys, all they did was build 3 dudes. I think they also rolled for tech, and they managed to move up their improved shipyards down there. The British did. So their improved shipyards, they only need 1 more, and then they've got improved shipyards. Let's go take a look at the Russians up there. So things are starting to thin out on the board down here. People are starting to put their stuff on. Like here, I'm not putting my capital ship on here because that's going to boost the American economy. What I can do is just bring any capital ship I'm building and stop here. And then when it's time for America to go to war, then I can just, you know, pay and place them all. I did start a Yamato. That's the big Yamato battleship. So what else we got going on? The Americans did place a carrier on this side this turn. Okay, let's go take a look at Russia here. And so he's backed off from the Eastern Front over here. He's got nothing up front here, because when Germany and Russia go to war on the very first turn, like if Germany declares war on Russia, then they can go in and they're +1 with everything, and Russia's -1 with everything. And so that's why he's backing off, because he knows he can't withstand that first hit anyway. He has been concentrating on taking these things over here, because the pact that we signed, the Molotov-Ribbentrop pact, allows him to take those in there, and I just let him do it, right? The other thing he could do is take this one out over here, but he hasn't done that yet. I don't know why. I've only got one more thing to take down here, and Greece, of course. We forgot that Greece was supposed to go to the British if Turkey went to the Axis when we're playing the Turkey at War thing. So there was only 2 turns, so we gave them the money to going back. It was only $2, so I gave them an extra $2 and gave them Greece in there. And they did have a destroyer in there, but that's why the British boats, the German boats are in there, because they went in and they took out the British destroyer. It was Greek, and then it became British when Greece turned over to the Brits. Yeah, so Russia doesn't have a lot of income, and that's why you don't see much different in here. These things are going to be deadly. These Katyushas here, these things he's got, what is it, advanced artillery, and that's what he's using. And these things, that they're better than everybody else's advanced artillery. So when when we go to war, those things will be they'll be taking people out for sure. But he's gonna have to watch now because he's gonna have to deal with the Turks down here, and he's gonna have to deal with the Germans at the same time. No, everybody's leaving him alone right now, but at some point when we go to war on the Eastern Front, he's going to have two fronts there, and I could even open up a third front. You know, instead of going after the British and the Americans, I could go after the Russians, and the Americans don't get much of an increase when I do that. So that might be what I do. We'll see when the time comes. Anyway, I will come back probably in 6 months. Now that we're at war, I don't need to wait every 2 turns to make one. We'll see. We'll see if anything happens in the next round. We'll be back. Okay, so here we are 6 months down the road, and China is toast. I thought it was going to be a pretty big battle, but you can see how much stuff that Japan came in here with. And they got 13 hits on the first round. And I think the other guys only had 8 left after that, so that was a bonus for them. That leaves them lots of ground troops there for the next battle, which is coming at some point in time, and you can see down here, that would be Calcutta, right? I'm not sure what's going to happen next, though. I could go there, or the Americans, like, they're still not rolling very well to get their income increased. They're still at... where are they? Only 32 IPP. So they need another 31. Like, I could keep them out of the war. You know, depending on how they roll, it would take them at least 3 turns to get into the war if I didn't do anything to agitate them, right? Like I didn't build a capital ship, or I didn't attack the British or the Dutch or whatever. Like that, I could keep them out of the war for at least another 3 turns. And you never know, maybe 5 or 6 turns, right? Just by not doing anything to provoke them. Like I could just build and build and build and get ready, and then boom, you know, go and hit them, right? Anyway, so that's what's going on over at the Pacific there. I have started building some troops up north there, although I'm not planning on spilling over the border yet, because again, that's going to agitate the Americans. But if I, like, that's what I'm saying, I could just build up everywhere, right? One thing that did happen down here in the Middle East is that this place here changed hands. The Turks, they spread out a bit, but that could I got a feeling that the Russians are going to get pretty excited about that, and the Russians could go after Turkey now, because they don't want Turkey to get too strong, and now Turkey's a little bit more spread out as well, right? So it would be in their best interest at some point in time. But Turkey's now at war with Britain, so they're at war with a major power. The French, there's not much they can do. They did buy a factory, but it's going to take another turn before they'll place it here, because it costs 5 and 5. So they paid the first 5 already, and they're going to have to pay another 5, and then they'll be able to place their factory. Britain's got quite a number of units down here in South Africa, right? And they do have only 3 in a militia up there in Cairo. But the thing is, they got that ginormous navy over there, and without the threat of Japan, then they can make their way over pretty easy. But the Italians just rolled wartime economy, which means that they get to roll 2d6 every turn to increase their, like, just a one-time increase, right? Like, so every turn they roll 2 6-sided dice, and they get plus that on their money, but only when they're at war. So that they're thinking they might get into the war soon. We'll see what the Americans think of that. If it's not much, then maybe they'll declare war on the British or something, right? We'll see. But the Italians do have a number of troops down here. Like, I think if they did go, they'd probably be going after Cairo to begin with. That will take a bonus away from them and give a bonus to the Italians, I believe. Just the Italians, I think. In Spain here, we passed 1941, so down in South America here, so there was a lot of infantry that got added. Like every so often something gets added. This is another big thing that happened here. Look at this, the Americans. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 battleships. They started 7 battleships. They only cost $3 each for them to start, because they've got improved shipyards. So it's going to cost 5, 5, and 5. So each one of those battleships will cost $15 more, and then they'll have 7 more battleships on the board. So I might want to attack them before then, right? And you can see they're pretty strong here for sure. Spain. I can't believe Spain. They're still at war. If the Germans and the Russians were at war, then these sides would just join the German side and the Russian side. But because they're not at war with each other, that means that the civil war in Spain is going to carry on. Now, one thing that happened here was I went down and I took this territory with this guy, and he sent in two, and he lost. This guy killed both of them. So that kind of left me with an opening here. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 units here. You know, I might be able to take the city, right? Like I might be able to get the upper hand. But it seems like whenever somebody attacks, they don't do very well in Spain. And that's the way it is, right? Attacking cities and attacking mountains is a difficult proposition. Definitely not looking at any type of sea line. Brad's been building lots of infantry. That's mostly what he's done, other than developing weapons, is building infantry. So he's got 6, 8, 9 infantry here, some infantry here. He's got planes and everything. He's got a commander. This doesn't look like a viable option as far as taking them. I'm not too worried about their boats because he doesn't have any transports. Without any transports, they can't bring anything over to the land. So I'm trying to build this slowly because you wanna protect this, but I don't need to do it too much right now because there isn't a lot of transports in the water. Like even if he does come at me, he's got one there and one over there, and then I've got a bunch of units in Paris that can pretty much hit anywhere. Like I can counterattack anywhere on the coast there. I would like units on the coast as well though, because that makes it much harder to do an amphibious assault. So what else? The Germans built a few ships down here because they didn't have any, or they're starting to build ships. Sorry, they still had a couple, and they built another one, and they moved a battleship and a cruiser along on the production chart over there, so that they can build a navy again. They don't want to build a huge navy, but they want to build some navy just to help, if nothing else, just to control this part here. And they have some down there. Like what I can do is I can build here because I've got a factory with 3 capacity there, so I can build here. And because Turkey's on our side, I can go through the straits there and go into the Med. So that's another option down there. And Russia, still not at war with anybody, right? Here, let me just get his money out of the way here. He likes to keep his money close. Stalin there, he doesn't trust anybody. So nothing happening here. He's finished taking everything he can. He's taken this last place that he hadn't taken last time. So there's nothing more he can do over here. So I think that he's probably going to go down there. What's he at? He's at 33. I can't remember. I think he needs to be at 46 to go to war. So, and he only rolls 1d12, so I don't think he can make it this turn. So he's another turn or 2 away. So probably within 2 turns, like I'm probably going to take the first shot at him. Probably within 2 turns, there will be a war here on the Eastern Front. And we've already been to the Pacific. I'll just show you the angle from the other side up here. So there's the non-conflict here between the Russians and the Japanese. You can see here, like they've got improved factories, so they can build lots of factories here, right? Or I mean, they can build 5 at their factories. So they're able to get lots of units here easily. And if I do it slowly, then maybe he won't notice, because like they're back here, so maybe he might think they're going the other way, and that might help. But what I really want to do is start building ships and planes, right? Even if I just build them on the battle board and the odd sub or destroyer over here, that would work too. Because I know those American battleships are coming at some point in time, right? Anyway, so that's about what's going on. Oh, you see, that's where the bulk of the British Navy is down there, down by Calcutta. And Anzac isn't doing anything. Until they get provoked, nothing's going to happen. The Netherlands, usually there's a war down there by now, but not yet. So we'll be back next turn. Okay, so not much happened on the whole board except for what you're looking at here. Here, I'll just move. So Italy declared war like they wanted to, and they came down to Cairo, but it's really difficult to do amphibious assaults. They only had 2 infantry to go in there with. Luckily, they had all these planes. Like they had their advanced mechs too, but they don't hit the beach until the second wave. And the British had 5 units in there. All they needed was 1 hit to take out the two infantry, and then that attack was over. So that's what happened. But luckily, on bombarding, a battleship caught the militia, and then the planes and the dudes managed to get the British dudes. So Cairo is empty right now, but it's still in British hands. And so really that's been the only move of this round. Everybody else is just building, consolidating, like moving around. Like nothing really happened in people just building there. There was no attacks in Spain. And then Turkey stretched their legs a little bit. So they came over here and took this off the British. So now Turkey and they also took this off the British. So Turkey and Italy are at war with the same major power. That means that they're aligned now, so they move together, they attack together, they defend together, they do everything together, and that's about it. Russia's still not at war with anybody, so they haven't done anything. The British, looks like they want to start moving into South America. That's kind of weird. Now, Moose just arrived, so he's going to be playing the British, and Brad's going to be playing the Americans, so that British strategy might change. I was kind of surprised that Brad was going down to South America, because he'd have to pay $10 just to attack something. So he might be doing something different this term. We'll have to see. And nothing's happened over here. Japan just bought some stuff and did nothing. Americans did nothing, absolutely nothing up there. Nothing happening in the islands. Nothing happening anywhere else. The French got a factory. That's the only thing that's different in this game. Lots of tech. You can see all the pies on the tech chart up there. And the Americans, they're still a long ways away. Still another small roll. They're still only at 42. And the Russians are only at 35. I think they got to get to 46. So with a big roll, they could go to war in after the next round. Like they could get there at the end of the next round. But that would be just about a max roll. And the Americans are at least 2 rolls away, and those are 2 big rolls. So it could be that they're 3 turns away. We'll see. They just moved their battleships along down here, so they got 7 battleships moving down the tech or the build chart over there. So that's what's going on here. We're gonna have some dinner. Well, that was a big fucking clusterfuck there. You can see Pearl Harbor has fallen, which means that the Americans are in the war. When the Japanese went there, this is what they went in with, and they only had 3 damaged battleships, and they lost 1 sub. That was it. The Americans lost their whole navy there. I was lucky that they moved it up, because if they'd left it here, then I couldn't have reached it. The Japanese get a sneak attack once in the game, so they get to go in extra space, and their planes get to get first strike. And there was only 2 planes, but then also the Americans on the first round are -1. So lucky me, they'd moved out there, but then I also took the Philippines at the same time, and then Mark, the dirty bastard, came down and he took out my navy with his navy, and all he did was damage a battleship. He didn't even lose any of his ships. So I didn't like that too much. But everybody is at war with everybody now. And what else have we got going on here? I guess the Japanese are not at war with the Russians. That's the only 2 people on the face of the earth here that are not at war with each other, and that's the Japanese and the Russians. And Calcutta is built up pretty good. Like you can see, they've also got some good units in there. They got planes, they got tanks, they got mechs, and they got that pretty good navy happening over there. And here, this is a quagmire here. So you can see, like, we've got Germans in here, SS troops, and we've got Turks in here, And now the Turks and the Italians are aligned, so you might as well just call these Italian troops, right? And the Italian Navy down there, and the Italians have Cairo, so they can go through the Suez Canal. They can come over here and lay a herd on the British over here, or they can go to the Russians. It's up to them. But yeah, this was the other thing was. Barbarossa has begun, and you can see all the tanks and everything. I couldn't make it very far into Russia, like he'd backed his troops off, right? So, and I was already backed off. The line was already back at Warsaw, so I couldn't make it very far into Russia. And then he was only allowed to attack one space back, and that was it. Like one country is allowed to attack on the turn that these guys go to war. Oh yeah, and by the way, this guy had to go down. I forgot about him. When you align these guys, then you get a free SS on Helsinki. I'm just telling RC there because I forgot to tell him. So yeah, like there's not much back in Germany there. Everybody's moved up, right? But then Mark, he thinks he can take advantage of me again by bringing these guys in. But I'm just going to take him out again because I got lots of planes and I got all these boats here. And I'll take him out again. And then he'll have less Navy. And you see the Americans over here, now that they're at war. Like they had built 7 battleships at once, right? And here they are right here. Or there's 5 of them anyway. And most of their Navy on this side of the board has gone over to the other side of the board because they haven't got a single boat over there. And of course, my Navy's sitting at Pearl Harbor, so if he'd have built a couple of boats, I'd have kicked him in the nuts again, and there's nothing he could have done about it, right? So they kind of build a Navy over here and bring it over there. Otherwise, that spells disaster for them. The Spanish Civil War did not have a victor. So what happens there is that they become Germans and Russians. You know, like you just align to your sides, and then you keep fighting. But the Spanish Civil War did not have a victor. So at the end of the game, when we go to add up points, nobody's going to get any points for winning the Spanish Civil War. Like that's 2 points down for the Axis. So that's really a win for the other guys, for the Comintern and for the Allies, because they weren't going to get a win or a point for getting those territories anyway. Just the Axis were. So I lost 2 points there. But I'm hoping to gain them in other ways. Like the Italian Navy is still really, really strong over there, which is unusual for this point. And now with the American Navy fucking off on this side of the board, all they have to deal with is just the British Navy, right? And a small American Navy, like they're just trying to bring some troops across. That's not going to hurt me too bad. There is this Russian Navy here too, and RC's a sneaky bastard, so I'm watching him. I got one eye on him for sure. he's just hoping that the British Navy takes me down, and then he's going to come in and clean up the mess. Yeah, the Italians, they basically hold North Africa, and the British and the French are holding South Africa down there. And the Americans just managed to align the Brazilians. They got the role they needed, and so they were able to pick up some units down there, and they were able to pick up the points. And not that they needed the oil, but they got that too. And they've still got some boats over there on the build chart. The Japanese still have their a few boats over there. They've got 3 boats left over there still. Not much left over there right now though. Actually, I haven't seen one of those over there yet. There's a carrier for who's that? Anzac. Anzac's got a carrier over there. It's just a light carrier though. Anyway, Japan's running out of oil. I forgot about that. So Japan, like this is their stack of oil right there. They're down to about 10 barrels, right? So that's only about 2 turns worth. They were planning on, okay, you know, like I'll just go down and get those islands, right? Well, the Americans proved to be too good of a target, and I couldn't have passed that one up. But they've got to bring that Navy back, and then they've got to go down there, right, to get the oil. And they've got the British Navy in the way. Thankfully, they've got a bunch of boats here. They've got some of them on the build chart, and then they've got all of these, but they've got to get these back so that they can go down to the Dutch islands down there and get that oil. And I think that's all. I think I've showed you everything. So I think we're going to try for one more turn tonight. We might not finish it though. Yeah, we're going to try though, but we've only got 6 turns left, so we're heading into January of 1943. So we should be able to finish it no problem tomorrow. And then of course there's going to be the cleanup and everything. I got to take my units home. Some of them are mine, right? Like the SS and the oil and things like that. And we got to add up the score, and that takes a while. So it's a good thing we've only got 6 left, and maybe only 5 after tonight. So this might be the end of the video, or it might not. We'll see. Okay, so it's been a very long day at the Cathouse. I don't know what time it is. Probably getting close to midnight or after. We are done. I think we have, yeah, we're in July of 1943 we're going into. So we've got 5 turns left. And the Americans just built a new Navy. They had to actually build it on the other side of the board and bring it over because of the Japanese Navy at Pearl Harbor. But, you know, I kind of screwed up there because there's a thing like the points that you get in the game. Ryan Carcass was pointing out to me afterwards, after I moved the Navy away, what I should have done was just take a transport and a dude and land it on the continental USA. Even though I would have lost them both, that would have taken a point away from the Americans. Like at the end of the game, if nobody's landed on the continental USA, then they get a point. That I could have got a point that way, and it would have been the easiest point that I could have gotten. Like it would have been uncontested. There was a spot there I could have dropped him on. But you snooze, you lose. But you see what he's got there. Like he built a ton of battleships. This one here, there's 5 battleships here, and there's 2 battleships and a couple more. So he probably has got the inside track to getting more capital ships in the Pacific than the Japanese. He's still got to make it across the water to attack my Navy, of course, and I've got a few more turns. But he's not going to be able to do much as far as like conquering Japan or anything because it's so late in the game. I'd be surprised if he was able to anyway, but we'll see. Now, what else has happened? Okay, so I don't remember where we were last time. I think the British had this, and so the Japanese were able to come down and take it back from the British, and they lost nothing. Absolutely nothing. They just came down and the British didn't put up, or I think they actually lost 2 subs, that's what it was. So that's pretty good for the Japanese, right? And then the Anzac brought their entire fleet up, I think 5 or 6 boats, and they missed everything on the first shot, and then the Japanese just wasted them on the first shot. So the only thing Anzac has done all game, and they totally fell on their face. They did not even get a hit. So then the Japanese have started to move into India here. They're making a slow walk towards India, and we're trying to squeeze them there. I tried to bring some Italians down here, but I just didn't have enough. Like I needed some Marines, and I didn't have any Italian Marines to assault this place. It's really hard to do an amphibious assault, especially against 2 tanks and 2 mechs when you're only using 2 dudes and 2 mechs, because all they need is 1 hit and the assault is over, right? So I decided against that one. Instead, the Turks came down, and there was a whole bunch of British units there, including a commander, and they managed to take them out there. So that was a big fight, and we both lost quite a bit of stuff. So that was good. So that's like now the British have got to watch for both sides. So they can't just throw everything they have at that Japanese stack. They've got to watch at what's coming at their back as well, right? And also the Italians and the Turks have got to watch, because you look at that big, huge Russian stack there. They can come in at any time they want to. That's why the Germans have got some units down there, and they've actually got some boats in the sea up there that with a couple of just 1 transport. Okay, so a transport there, and they've got some Marines in Romania that they can bring down as well. But he's just got way too many stuff in the Caucasus there for me to even punch through, right? And then the British did try coming up, trying to make their way into North Africa, They made it as far as here, but by the time they got there, they only had one tank left. They had overwhelming odds when they went in. They just rolled poorly, and the Italians rolled pretty well. So then the Italians were able to come back down in force and take that tank out and knock their commander back. So the British don't have nearly as many troops down here in the south. Of course, the French do, so they will be able to hold off. Like the Italians aren't going to be able to make their way down there anyway. And then going through the rest of Africa here, the Russians decided to come down here and take Liberia so that they'd have a port down here. So they've got quite a bit of ships in the Atlantic over here. I think they've got one coastal sub up off of the coast of Portugal as well, and then they still own Portugal. Now over here, like there should be a lot more British or Commonwealth boats on that board, but I've just been killing them like you wouldn't believe. Like with the Germans, the Japanese, and now with the Italians. Like there was a whole group of British boats out here. The Italians came out with a bunch of subs, and the planes that I landed up here in Spain, and they just they wasted them down there. I don't know why the Americans. I guess they didn't attack these subs because the subs would have just submerged. But it really helps when you have a commander. Like I had a commander on one of the subs here, so he was able to kick up the everybody by one, right? So your coastal subs are actually rolling at 3, and your other subs are rolling at 4. So that makes a huge difference. And then of course your planes are rolling. And I did have one of the elite fighter squadrons in there. It was a torpedo bomber, and even taking all those subs out of there, like all I could do was escape with subs because the British still have Gibraltar, so you can only move subs through there if you're at war with them like I am. So I've still got the rest of the Italian fleet in here, and there's nobody challenging them. Like this Turkish boat here, the Yavuz, he's working as a blocker, so even if the Americans tried to come in, they'd be stopped right here, and then the Italians could come over with their navy and take the Americans out. So the Italians are pretty secure in the Med, and they've secured the Med the whole game. Like the very first turn, the British left the Med to take their navy over there, which was just destroyed this last turn. So it was a pretty ominous navy, but it sure fell pretty easily. Now in South America here, Brad, he's playing the Americans, and he rolled a 2. He was trying to influence these guys, and he got it. So he got all of Brazil. And then this past turn, he rolled a 2 trying to get the Mexicans, and he got Mexico. And they had a fighter and a destroyer and a couple of units and everything. So he's doing really good down in South or Latin America and South America. In Spain here, Germany took out everything in Spain except, like, now there's Portugal. Like Portugal is they can take Portugal if they want, but they don't want to because that could give America a port if they were coming across. Like the Americans over here, it's pretty tough for them in this game to assault across the Atlantic because you can't use other people's bases, right? Like they can't use the British naval bases. So you look way over here, they'd be able to go to a base here, and then, you know, from a base here, then go into Europe, right? And then from Europe, come back out to this base and then come back, you know, getting a shot going. But the Russians came over and they took out Portugal and they took out the Azores, because the Americans could have taken the Azores and put a naval base on. But the Americans and the Russians are not allowed to attack each other, according to the rules of this game, until Berlin falls. And yeah, this is Berlin right here. I've got all this stuff on Berlin. So Berlin's not about to fall anytime soon. And this last turn, I put 6 more SS troops on here. Like here's a heavy tank SS and a medium tank and another medium tank and 3 SS dudes, and I've got SS all over the board. There's a light tank SS, and I've got mountain SS, I've got horses, like there's SS everywhere, and I've still got lots to go. It is a chore, I tell you, like trying to keep up with it, like being there at a certain place at a certain time, and saving the money till the end of your turn, because if you don't have the money at the end of your turn before you collect, then you can't buy it, right? You might only need $1, and if you forgot to save it, then you're not getting that SS chip to put underneath a tank or a dude or whatever it's going to be, right? Now, as far as Barbarossa over here, I don't know what to do. Like I'm thinking I'm gonna have to stop over here, like just form my own line over here where kind of where the lines are drawn right now, like just go just barely into Russia, because he's got huge stacks of things, and I've got lots of stuff to do, right? I've got the whole of Europe there to maintain, and all he's got to do is just form a wall right here, right? So I'm going to have to form a wall, because it's getting that late in the game that if I can keep him in here, then I can contain communism, and that'll go a long way towards me winning the game, right? Like if I can keep him out of Turkey, if I can keep him from breaking through this line, then I'll be doing all right. And the other thing is the Americans, they haven't built many boats over here. Like they're not taking the Atlantics and the Germans seriously. And I don't want to say anything about it, because like that, I could get some points. They're doing most of the building over there in the Pacific, and I don't think they have enough time to take Japan. So I think that if I can hold off the Russians, then I'll be doing all right. But if I just get silly and I start attacking the Russians with these big, huge groups of units that they have, I'm just going to kill myself. Because look at, like, I don't have enough dudes in here. Like, this is a commander. Here's a couple of infantry. There's 3 infantry. There's infantry and infantry, right? That's all I've got here. There's a couple more here, but there's just not many infantry near the front lines for your cannon fodder, right? And you look at the big stacks in here, like these are advanced mechanized infantry, and he's got his Katyushas. These things here are just devastating, and he's got tanks and he's got planes. Like there's no way I can break through those lines. I was hoping, like to just come down and maybe come up with the Turks over here, but there doesn't seem to be any way I'm going to be able to do that, because there's just too much there. So what I'm going to try now, I think I've got, like if I just use buy some boats, then I think I can hold them off, the Americans off. And what I can do is I can break through these lines here. Like I can put five units at this factory here, and he's got nothing back here, right? So I can just start coming into Russia here and see if that draws any units back. Making an opening for the Germans. If nothing else, he's got to go back and plug some holes, and just to the point where he's not going to have enough to break through my lines, and I'd be happy with that. And there's that Navy there that's in the blue thing down there. So I've got quite a bit of boats left, but he's got all those capital ships, so that worries me. I think I'm gonna have to build a lot of subs and destroyers. I've still got a Yamato that's coming on the board next, but it's getting late to start building capital ships right now. Like they wouldn't be finished in time, right? If you built them right now, then I think they'll be finished. But I kind of want to get units that I can use right now, right? So that's the way it looks here at the Cathouse in Edmonton, Alberta. That's the end of this video, and I'll start another one tomorrow. And tomorrow night, that'll be my last night in Edmonton. I'll be leaving for home on Sunday, so this game will be done tomorrow. Just take another quick look around here. So, thanks for joining us for this episode, and we will finish you off tomorrow. Take care, everyone. General Hand Grenade out.